The Proficiency Index measures students meeting or exceeding proficiency expectations on state assessments as were established in the Michigan ESSA Plan. For the ESSA Plan, the expectation for proficiency is 60% of students proficient in ELA and 47.55% of students proficient in math. The school index measures each school as a whole and each subgroup against these measures as part of the overall school index. In this example, we can see that the school had a proficiency index of 37.05. This means that they were 37.05% of the way to meeting the established standards in Michigan's ESSA Plan. If we click View More on the Proficiency Index, we can see additional details. When we click View More, we first see the combined view, and I want to point out the small text in the bottom right corner that indicates which of these are going to be included in our calculations. So for anything with less than 10 students, the data is suppressed. That is, they will have 1 asterisk for that. For 2 asterisks, that means that these will be shown for reporting purposes, but the numbers are not going to be used to determine the index value. And finally, 3 asterisks means that there's less than 30 students in that subgroup, and the data is displayed, but it's also not included in the calculations. So for our example here, we have our all students subgroup is going to be included, our African American subgroup is going to be included, our economically disadvantaged subgroup will be included, our Hispanic subgroup will be included, students with disabilities, 2 or more races, and white. So these are going to be the categories that make up our index for this school. So from here, we can click on the ELA tab to get more information about ELA specifically. When we click on ELA, we see the calculations for each of these subgroups, and what it does is looks at how many students were enrolled, and then how many of those students tested, which gives us the percent of students that tested. FA means full academic year. How many of those students were proficient? So in this case, 95 out of the 398 students that took this assessment were proficient, which is 23.87%. 23.87% is 39.78% of the way to meeting our ELA target of 60%. So our all students category was 39.78% of the way to calculating that. So taken into consideration, all of these values are put into the formula to then say what our overall ELA percentage is. So let's take a look at math, and we'll just use the all students example again. We had 405 students once again, so the same amount of students were enrolled. We did have a different amount of students that tested this time. So on our ELA example, 398 students tested. For our math example, 400 students tested. So we have a different percent of students that took the assessment. We had 87 of those 400 were proficient, which is 21.75, and 21.75% proficient is 47.74% of the way to the math target of 47.55. So again, we come back to our combined screen. We see all of these percentages represented here, and those percentages are then calculated across. So between both of the subjects, this school was 42.76% of the way for all students, and these various percentages for the other subgroups that are included, which means that they have an overall proficiency index of 37.05. So this school is 37.05% of the way to meeting our targets of 60% proficient in ELA and 47.5% proficient in math. Coming back to the proficiency index, this is then taken into consideration along with, in this case, the assessment participation and the school quality index. And those 3 pieces together combine to give the overall index of 47.47% of the way to meeting the ESSA expectations. And for this school, that does not put them into a CSI, ATS, or TSI situation, and so they are a universal support school.